Thanks, Mr. Chairman. First, let me tell you, don't take it personally that Apple wouldn't show up today. It was 10 years ago in this very room that they declined my invitation to come and talk about their complicity in the violation of human rights in China, and sadly, it's gotten worse since then, so don't take it personal. So what we know is this: the Russians have set out to invade our election space. They tried it in 2016. We thought they were going to try it again in 2018, and we answered in a variety of ways, some of which we can't discuss openly in this room, with the measure of success in 2018. But we've been warned by intelligence agencies across the board, don't assume they won't be back in 2020 in some capacity. Illinois was one of the first states that the Russians hacked into in 2016. They took control of 76,000 pieces of information and voter files for 76,000 individuals, and fortunately for us, apparently didn't do anything with them, but they had the capacity to do it. So we think we're a lot smarter in protecting ourselves now, but I hope we're right. We'll find out. Here's what I want to do to bring this home from Russia to China. We know what the Chinese did in response to Hong Kong within their own country and using social media, spam accounts and other disinformation campaigns about what was happening in Hong Kong. Are we naive to believe that they would not interfere in our 2020 election campaign? And I notice a nod of negative feelings. We shouldn't be naive, I think is what you're saying. And if so, what should we be doing about this in light of the potential threat that we have? If not direct impact on our election process, disinformation campaigns coming out of China, not directed at the Hong Kong experience, but directed in ways that they think enhance their position in the United States. They may decide, Mr. Chairman, that because of your position on TikTok, they want to say a few things about you. I hope not, but let's consider this possibility. What do you have to tell me?
So, Senator, one thought is I think it's important to think about how different countries operate differently and use different tools. So with China, I see a pattern of using economic leverage to translate that leverage into policy. So one example would be retaliating against a university if they invite a speaker that the Chinese government doesn't like. Another example would be suggesting to a US businessman that if it would be very good for him and his interests in China if he communicated a certain message to the Hill or to an elected official. And I don't know that everyone will think about FARA or statutes like FARA that are designed to promote transparency when there's an instance like that. So I think we've got to be plain spoken about the different risks the countries face, and I think we have to invest in transparency measures like FARA to ensure we're surfacing instances like that, because I think that's the vector that I see from our cases is more likely.
So let's stick with FARA for just a minute here. In recent years, DOJ has required leading Chinese state-run media organizations to register under the Foreign Agents Registration Act, FARA, which requires individuals and entities representing a foreign principal through political or advocacy work to publicly register with the Department of Justice, disclose their activities, and maintain written records. According to DOJ records, there are currently only 28 entities with active FARA registrations associated with China, 28. So I ask you, is the department considering expanding the scope of organizations with Chinese ties to register under FARA?
I'd have to go check the numbers myself, Senator. I can't vouch for them sitting here today. But we certainly consider China one of the principles that we would prioritize in our FARA inquiries and investigations.
Any other comment from the other witnesses?
I did want to mention, so yesterday, of course, Super Tuesday, at CISA, we hosted both unclassified and classified operation centers to work with state and local election officials and to coordinate with the intelligence community and our law enforcement partners to ensure that that part of the elections were secure. And so to the original point of your question, when it comes to protecting the election infrastructure, the voting infrastructure, we're agnostic of the threat actor, whether it's Russians or Chinese or any others. And it is our belief, advised by our IC partners, that there are many nations that may have designs or desires to in some way influence or affect our elections, and we prepare for all of them.
Can I branch out in another area that's come to our attention recently, and that's the involvement of the Chinese at our universities in research students as well as faculty members. one major university, I won't name it, a major science department at that major university, they believe was recently compromised when the head of the department was receiving regular remuneration from the Chinese Communist Party or government. Can you tell me, perhaps, Mr. Wallace, is this a serious problem that we need to focus on? I think in our own terms, we have many outstanding Chinese students at our universities in Illinois, and some of them stay and do wonderful things. Others, obviously, are there for a different purpose. What's the reality?
No, I think you're absolutely correct, and that's our counterintelligence division working very closely with the cyber division. Once again, this is one of the tentacles of the whole of society approach that the Communist Party is pushing to gain intelligence. They do that in the universities to undermine our R&D projects, right? So that they cut in half the amount, or not even half, of what it would take to build a product, because they steal the technology. So we have an aggressive outreach program in our counterintelligence division with the academia to ensure that we get them up to speed on what those threats are, and that's a robust program that our counterintelligence division has. From the cyber perspective, we see the exact same position. Placement and access from an insider that gets onto the systems of a university that has the ability to look at those programs creates a cyber intrusion threat, potentially to steal that information, with the goal of furthering their programs over there with the hard work that our universities are doing around those programs.
I just close by saying we are all consumed by the coronavirus. We know its origin appears to have been in China. There have been some wild-eyed, unsubstantiated theories as to what the Chinese might have been doing there. And I just hope we take care to guard our national integrity, of course, but not to engage in this wild speculation that has no basis in fact.